If you have been navigating the mechanical keyboard space for any length of time, you are undoubtedly familiar with Royal Kludge. They are essentially the forefathers of the entry-level enthusiast hobby, the gateway drug that introduced many of us to the concept of stock, clack, and switch lubrication back when the RK61 was the only viable option under $50. However, the landscape has shifted violently in the last 2 years. We are now living in a post-Rainy 75, post-Aula F75 world where aluminum cases, gasket mounts, and prelude perfection are available for prices that used to barely cover a hollow plastic chassis. The bar has been raised significantly, and quote-unquote good enough is no longer acceptable for the discernible gamer who demands precision in their peripherals. In this hyper-competitive market, the Royal Kludge L75 occupies a fascinating, if somewhat polarizing position. While the rest of the industry is racing to create the most compact, efficient, exploded 75% layouts possible, specifically to maximize mouse space for low DPI aiming and shooters, RK decided to pivot. They resurrected a feature that has largely vanished from the compact space, the left-hand macro column. This decision transforms the L75 from a standard budget contender into a specialized tool, one that sits in a strange limo between a productivity powerhouse for creators and a unique ergonomic puzzle for the dedicated shooter fan. I have spent significant amount of time with this board to see if the L series brings enough innovation to justify picking it up over the swarm of standard layout competitors. We are looking at a board that tries to balance the cozy aesthetic of modern desk setups with the utilitarian demands of the grinder. For those of us who drop our hard-earned cash on premium experiences, games like Call of Duty Black Ops 7, Battlefield 6, or Escape from Tarkov, we expect our hardware to facilitate the experience. When you have invested $70 in a title and hundreds more in your GPU to get high frames, the last thing you want is your input device fighting you. The unique layout poses a serious question. Does the utility of 5 extra buttons outweigh the disruption to your hand's natural anchor point? Before we deep dive into the specs and performance, I do want to make a quick note on the unboxing footage you are seeing on the screen. I shot this on my GoPro to give you a raw, unfiltered look at the packaging, but the lens had a bit of a smudge on it that I didn't catch in the moment. It looks kind of gritty, but I decided to keep it because it's authentic. This is a studio polished B-roll segment. It's just me tearing into the box so you know exactly what you get, what you're paying your money for, etc., etc. So let's get straight into what you actually get in the box, because the unboxing experience was telling. Alongside the keyboard, Royal Kludge includes a standard USB-C to USB-A cable, a user manual, a combination keycap and switch puller, and a small pack of 4 extra switches. In my case, the linear creams to match the board. However, I have to address a significant quality control hiccup immediately. As I was unboxing the unit, as you saw in the background, and probably what you're seeing right now, even though it's all blurred, smudgy and blurry, I do apologize. It won't happen again. Like I said, as I was unboxing the unit, the Royal Kludge branding badge, which is supposed to be affixed to the chassis, literally popped off and fell off the box. It was broken. It wasn't broken, but the glue had completely failed. I had to reattach it myself. While this doesn't affect the typing performance, it is indicative of corner cutting that can happen with budget manufacturing. If I were a casual consumer opening this up after spending my money, seeing parts falling off the board before I even plugged it in would be a major flag. So with that, I got to segue and say I appreciate Royal Kludge for sending out this board for use and review in order to put in front of you all, the gamer, today. So it forces you to ask, if they cheaped out on the glue for the logo, where else did they cut the cost? It's a disappointing start that mars the presentation. Moving to the board itself, the most distinct feature is the left side column. You get 5 dedicated macro keys. Running vertically down the left edge is M1 through M5. In a genre where mousepad real estate is usually king, adding width back into a 75% board is a pretty bold choice. It widens your arm stance slightly, but for the gamer used to a tight setup, it kind of feels foreign. Alongside those macros, you have a rotary knob, also positioned on the left side. which is a distinct departure from the standard top right placement. Under the hood, the L75 utilizes a gasket-mounted structure. The plate is sandwiched between soft foam gaskets, providing a cushioning typing fill that isolates the PCB to remove that cheap hollow resonance. The real conversation, however, lies in the switch selection. Arcade lists these with specific enthusiast branding: the linear creams, the ones I have, the tactile beige, and the silent switch. For the shooter demographic, the linear cream switch is the target, and that's kind of why I chose them. This is a fast, smooth, linear option designed to minimize friction. In premium titles like Black Ops 7, where the omnic moving system requires fluid inputs, you want to switch with zero resistance. The linear creams are decent out of the box, featuring a factory lube job that eliminates scratchiness. Crucially, the PCB is fully hot swappable if you decide the linear creams are too tight. You can easily pull them out and drop in ACO Silver Pros or Gatoron Oil Kings if you like. The board is agnostic to the Switch brand, giving you full access to the MX ecosystem. Connectivity is handed via a tri-mode system. You have Bluetooth 5.0, a 2.4G dongle for wireless gaming, and USB-C wired connection. For competitive play in paid titles where every millisecond counts, you'll want to use the 2.4G dongle or the wired connection to ensure your polling rate is completely stable. If you scour the subreddits and YouTube comments, the sentiment around the L75 is split fairly even. It comes down to user preference and the willingness to adapt. The general typing crowd and productivity gamers often praise this board. The sound profile out the box is frequently described as creamy or thocky thanks to the generous use of pour-on foam. Users appreciate that you do not need to open this board up, tape it, mod it, or lube stabilizers to get a satisfying acoustic experience. It is a buy-in type experience per se, which is exactly what the mass market wants right now. However, the core shooter community, specifically those grinding premium titles like COD or Battlefield, offer a more cautious take. The primary discussion point is edge finding. Many players instinctively anchor their pinky against the left edge of the keyboard to locate the left control or escape without looking. Because the macro column pushes the standard keys inward, that physical reference point is moved about an inch to the right. Some users report accidental macro presses during heated moments, throwing a grenade when they meant to crouch. Others claim that after a week of use, they adjusted to the spacing. It's a classic case of muscle memory conflict. The hardware isn't failing, but the user's instincts are kind of being challenged. I took the L75 through my usual gauntlet, focusing on a mix of fast-paced arcade shooters and slower tactical survival games to see where this layout shines and where it kind of creates friction. In terms of workflow, the L75 is objectively excellent. Having dedicated keys for OBS scene transitions or clipping gameplay moments without a modifier key is kind of a luxury. If you are a creator capturing clips, hitting M1 to say the last 5 minutes is smoother than contorting your hand to hit Alt F10. The left side knob is also superior for workflow. My right hand never has to leave the mouse to adjust volume, allowing you to maintain aim readiness. Gaming performance in premium shooters is what we need to be honest about the trade-offs. In high-octane titles like Call of Duty Black Ops 7 or Battlefield 6, muscle memory is paramount. The Omni movement system allows you to sprint, slide, and dive in any direction, meaning your fingers are doing a dance across the keys. Initially, I found the L75's layout introduced somewhat of a low friction. When attempting to slide cancel, my pinky would instinctively reach for the edge of the chassis and hit the M5 key instead of left control. Personally, I'm not a fan of this layout for FPS games. The escape key being displaced feels all wrong, and having to hunt for the edge of the keyboard kind of breaks my immersion. However, to be fair, after several hours I began to adjust my hand placement. The switches themselves are responsive, facilitating clean movement once you get the bearings. In tactical shooters like Squad or Escape from Tarkov, the board's value proposition kind of flips. These games require an immense number of keybinds. In Tarkov, you need keys to check your mag, chamber, fire mode, and toggle devices. Having those 5 extra keys accessible to the pinky becomes a competitive advantage here. Imagine binding your heavy bleed tourniquet to M1 and painkillers to M2. Instead of taking the fingers off WSAD to hunt for the number row, you can just tap the macro column while keeping movement fluid. In this context, the L75 transforms from a layout puzzle into a command center. Now, if you main Twitch shooters like Black Ops 7 and Battlefield 6, the L75 layout is kind of a liability that fights your muscle memory. But if you grind complex games like Tarkov and Armor Reforger, those keys are a competitive advantage. It's a great board with questionable QC on the badge, provided you can adapt. Now, let's go ahead and dive into today's gameplay and see what this board actually looks like. Why do y'all do that, man? Just fucking fight me. Don't hide and try to shoot me in the back. Just fucking fight me. Catch me if you can. I'm the gingerbread man. Wow, 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 wow. Better than we fucking just having at it with the fucking anti-tank, bro. Oh, look at that. Come here, buddy. Got you.
Move!